Anyways, let's start with revision of our second unit, XML. XML, as we know, which stands for Extensible Markup Language. If you consider your HTML, which is Hypertext Markup Language, and XML, there is a lot of difference. Basically, HTML Hypertext Markup Language is used to create static web pages. Right? Coming to XML, Extensible Markup Language or Extended Markup Language, this is used for transport of data. It is not just for creating web pages, but to transport the data. Yes, we can carry the data. And the one more thing in XML is we can create our own tags in XML. Whereas in HTML, you can't create your own tags. But in XML, depending upon the scenario over there, like depending upon the form over there, you can create, suppose if you have an application, depending upon the type of form, you can create your own tags and create an XML file. But when compared with HTML, XML is more strict. We say XML is more strict because it should surely follow some syntax. For example, if you consider this particular statement, if at all, if you consider this statement in XML, you should surely have an opening tag and as well as closing tag. You can't simply open and leave it off like some of the tags in HTML, like BR or so. So XML is some stricter language than markup language than HTML. Okay, markup is determines that enclosing the textual information in between the tags, and once there is an opening tag, there should be a closing tag in XML. Okay, these XML tags, as I told you, these can be user defined tags. That means you can create your own tags and use those tags. But the thing is, once you open, you should close it. That is important in XML. So, whereas in HTML, you'll be having all predefined tags and its functionality is limited. Whereas extensible markup language tags functionality is extensible. Okay. So this XML can act as a communicator. As I told you, it is used to transfer the information. So this XML can act as a communicator between two web services. Can act as a communicator between two web services. Like, see, if you have a Java language, which is loop client, and .NET is a server. Now you can communicate using this XML language. So to exchange the data, transport the data, transfer the data, carry the data, and exchange the data, all these things can be done by XML language. So what are basic differences is 2 marks question, XML, HTML, DTD, like this, 2 marks question. There's XML tags are user defined, whereas HTML are predefined, which we know. XML functionality is defined by user. Yes, that is what we have been telling, and it can be extendable, whereas HTML functionality is limited and it will have its own tags, its own syntax. XML tags are case sensitive, HTML tags are case insensitive. Like you can write, if you have in HTML, there are tags like head, title, body, and all. Those you can write in lowercase letters as well as uppercase letters. But whereas in XML, you can't write the things however you want, some in lowercase, some in uppercase. No, you should write in a particular case, whether it is lower or uppercase. If you start writing your own tag in an uppercase letters, you should close it using the same. You can't change the case from opening tag to the closing tag. Okay, so this XML is used to describe the data. If you remember we have created in our lab session, we have created users.xml file. What happened in that users.xml file? We are able to give we wanted to take some 6 or 10 users, and we gave all the information for all these users in an XML file. As such, the list of all these users is displayed as we execute the program. This is what we did, right? So XML is the language which is used to describe such data, whereas HTML, when you say, that is used to display the data. That is why we are saying that HTML is used to create some static web pages. Like if you wanted to create some login page, what and all will you have? Some username, password, and submit button. Yes or no? HTML, using HTML, you can create such thing. You can what do we say? We can add some what do we call, some image into our file. We can link on clicking this, we can link it to forward to some other thing. So what is happening always? This is used, HTML is used to display the page, display the data in the page. Okay. Uh, Coming to tags, opening tags and closing tags. In XML, you should have an opening tag. When there is an opening tab, there should be closing tab. But there, in HTML, you need not have. That is why we had something called as BR in HTML, which is used for break, which doesn't have some closing tag. Okay. And we say that XML is given by W3C, World Web Consortium, so that it can be understood by everyone, by any language, by everyone in the sense by any language. That means it is platform independent, because if you consider your Java language, suppose you have Unicode specification for object-oriented programming languages. Just saying that Java is a platform independent. How it can be independent is, as soon as you try to write the code, that code will be converted or will be carried out in an Unicode specification such that it can be understood by any other programming language. Similarly, XML is also like that. It should be understood by all the programming languages like Java, which is an independent, platform independent and language independent. So, as such, in order to facilitate this particular option, XML is given by W3C. XML is given by W3C because it can provide these things. And XML is a text-based markup language, which is derived from SGML, Standard Generalized Markup Language. So XML tags identify the data. That is what we told. XML tags is used to describe the data, and this is used to store and organize the data rather than specifying how to display it like in HTML pages. What happens in HTML pages? It will be placed like username will be placed beside that some text box, password will be placed beside some text box. That text box also will not, depending upon the condition, it will not take the text written. It will be displayed in the form of dots and all. Okay, XML just shows what data is there in it. Just to show, it is not going to process anything there. It will show what data is there. By using that, later on we'll be performing certain other things. Okay, so XML tags will identify the data, whereas HTML is used to display the data in the page. Okay, and we are saying that XML introduces new possibilities by adopting many successful features of HTML. That's why, if you could remember, we had something called as XHTML in our fourth unit, XHTML. So, because HTML is a free form language, whereas XML is just used to display the data, describe the data, whereas HTML is used to display the data. But if both are combined, we are going to get too much of facilities. That is why we had XHTML in our later sessions. Okay, so the main important characteristics of XML is it is extensible so that you can create your own tags uh, depending upon the type of form which I told you in the beginning, depending upon the type of form. XML carries the data, it does not present it as it does not display it, rather it will describe the data, transfer the data, store the data, organize the data. Okay, XML is used for that purpose, and XML is a public standard that it means that it was created by W3C, World Wide Web Consortium, so that any other language which is using XML should be able to understand. And as a result, we say XML is an open standard, something like an open book. Everyone can understand, like any other language can understand this XML. Okay, because it was developed by W3C. What are the features? They focus on data rather than design. This is easier because easy and efficient because of platform independency, because of that usage of W3C. Remember, remind yourself once while writing our XML program, always we used to write in the beginning angular bracket question mark XML W3C yes or no, something like HTTPS, W3C, all this we used to write. Why? To specify that it should be understood by every other language because we are executing this in the browser itself. Yes, so that can be done. As a result, it is open standard language and platform independent. This XML is compatible with other markup languages like HTML. Okay, and this supports platform transition. Platform transition. That means data conversion between platform transition is nothing but see we are saying that XML is as it is supported or developed by W3C. W3C. That means XML can be used by any other some other language also. When it is used by some other language, during its conversion from one language to other language, during its conversion, basically there will be some data loss. But coming to XML, you will not have such data loss at all. You will not have such data loss. Okay, and that is what is called as platform transition, that is converting from one particular language to other particular language. That means in XML I'll be reading in terms of XML, the same program is taken to the other platform like Java or .NET. Then in that case you'll have data loss that is not available or that is not occurring, that doesn't occur in XML. As such, we are saying that it supports platform transition. Okay, and this allows XML validation. Okay, XML document is validated. How? See, this is the major task behind XML. That is why XML, though it is a stricter language, just we are saying that XML, because of its XML validation property, we are saying we are still using XML. So this can be validated how? By using document type definition or XML schema. XML schema is basically used for validating the entire XML file. Depending because it is being transferred from one language, one platform to the other platform. So it is validated by using DTP or XML schema. Is this clear? So again, XML schema, there are two things. One is internal schema and external schema. How do we write that in an internal schema or XML schema, external schema? That we will see in the next, in the coming session. Okay, by saying XML validation using DTD, this this validation performs or checks syntax whether it is correct or not, and it will avoid any other issues that may arise due to incorrect XML. Okay, that is what is a major thing which is performed by XML because it undergoes validation. Next, it adapts technology advancements. Adopts technology advancements. That means because of its platform independency, it will move to any other technology. Next, XML supports Unicode. Exactly, this is what we have seen. That platform independency supported or developed by W3C or supported by Unicode. All these things comes under the same branch. Okay, Unicode specification. Yeah, differences between HTML and XML. 2 marks question, which focus on the display, not care. This we have seen earlier. Now coming to one simple example of XML program. Yeah, we'll be using the version 1.0. Here only we'll be writing HTTP, XML name, space, HTTPS colon W3C, all these things. Employee name. This employee, if you can see, look at this employee, open tag and close tag. These are the tags which are created by the user itself. That means the one who is writing the code is creating those particular tags. If you remember in HTML, you have some order, like you should write HTML and then head and then title and then body and so on. Only at least you should have at least body tag to write in HTML. Such tags are not provided in Excel. Okay, you are writing employee here. Okay, I am writing employee. You people can write it as students. Student is one tag. You close the student tag. Within that student roll number, student name, student address can be described. Okay. So while saving this thing, you should save it as with .xml extension. The name can be anything. It need not be employee only. It can be even emp.xml, something like that. Okay, and it can be run on any browser or XML editor. So what XML document consists of? This consists of various elements, attributes, and entity references. See, this is one of the XML file, employee with employee number 1, name, Rama, salary 18,000. Similarly, element from opening tag to closing tag includes the text data is called as one element. These things, the data from here to here is called as one element. Within the tags, those are said to be elements. When you consider about tags, if you consider the rules for tags, I'm in the class. Syntax rules for tags and elements. If you consider element syntax, which is in between the tags, and one more thing, those elements can be nested with them, like employee. In the, like, you will have branch, in that you'll have some second year. Inside the branch, you'll be having second year, third year, like that. Okay, so that nesting of elements also can be. Now coming to one of its example, XML version, something like this. Output you'll get IRE. Maybe this is mine. Okay, and empty tag. The text that appears between star is called content. The text which is in between the start and end tag is called as content. And if there is no data available in that content place, then that is said to be an empty element, and that particular tags are said to be empty tags. Okay. Mm, a start tag will be followed by an end tag. And a complete empty element can be written like this if there is no data. Either it can be written like this or it can be written like this. Look here, you opened and immediately you closed. If you say before this, if you give this backslash before this HR, what happens is it will expect for one more open tag. That is why in order to close, you'll be giving like this. By looking at this particular thing, you should understand that the element is an, or the tag is an empty tag. Okay. Now these tag rules, XML tags are case sensitive, which we have seen earlier. Next, must be closed in an appropriate order. Like if you have hierarchy nested things, you should close like this, like you do in your C programming. Next, empty element, it can be closed having a backslash at the end. Okay, using various XML element. This is one example. This here we say it's a root element, which will have every XML will have one root element. Okay, inside that you'll be having various other elements. Next, attributes. If you consider attributes here, attribute is used to define some extra information of the element. So attributes are nothing but the values which are provided to those variables. They must be enclosed within single quotes or double quotes. Okay. These are all unique for one, and that is duplicate attributes are not allowed in the element. Attribute order is not important in any element. Okay. Coming to XML symbols, they are having specific meaning. Yeah, if you have less than simply XML is given. See, look here. XML is given predefined entity references, something like this, which determines less than GD is greater than ampersand, apostrophe, and quotation accent. But to define the structure of document, we need or we use a DTD or existing. XML document is called as well-formed document because if you understand or if you observe the tags over there, all of the tags, if you open it, you should close it. If there is an empty tag, there is specific syntax for it. You should use on, and if you have a particular structure in opening the tags, you should close it according to the structure. Like if it is from top to bottom, you should close it from bottom to top. Next, it should be the tags should be case sensitive. While opening, if it is in lowercase letters, even while closing, it should be in lowercase. You can't simply use whichever letters or alphabets you have. No, you can't use. So, usage of all such syntactic rules in XML language, as such, it is called as a well-formed document. Okay, so it must begin with the prologue. Prologue must be maintained and unique root element. Yeah, root element must be enclosing must be closing tags for all. Oh, there must be closing tags for all opening tags. Yes, that is why we say all this is a well form. We have seen all these proper cases should be yeah, attribute value should be closed within double quotes or single quotes, but you can't just leave it like that as a value. Okay, uh, in the place of some special characters, you'll be using some reference values. Next, it is document type definition. Document type definition, external DTD, internal DTD, which is used for XML validation, which is an important phase in XML language. XML language. Okay, XML schema definition, XSD is one of the other type of what do we call XML validation, which we can do with it. XML schema definition. There is a little difference between these two things, DTD and XSD. What is that? If it is DTD, it is an XML technique to define the structure. This is also used to define the structure of the document. Document type definition is said to be an old technique, and whereas this is a new technique. XSD is a new technique. XML schema definition. Here you are giving the schema. That means you'll be providing the entire structure. Okay, there is no much difference between these two things, but as XSD is a new technique, you'll have somewhat more features. Okay, you'll have some more features in XSD. Here very less number of data items. Here you have data types, and here you have many more number of data types. This doesn't allow us to create our own data type. Here we can have, because this is obviously an XML. DTD less number of restrictions, whereas in XSD you will have more number of restrictions. Because of usage of such a document definition, schema definition, otherwise, we are saying, or we are proudly say that XML is a well-formed document always. Okay, and TTD allows three cardinality operators like n times, 0 times, and here many number of cardinality constants are there. This we will see while defining some existing in our next class. Okay, DTD doesn't support namespace because doesn't support namespace concept, which solves. If there is an ambiguity when there is a namespace, there will be a problem. But whereas in existing, there is a which supports namespace constant. Okay. Uh, Okay, so XML schema definition, again in this simple, you have something called a simple XML schema as well as complex, and this is the hierarchy of XML schema definition. You have data type simple and complex. Simple, again you have built-in and user defined. Okay, in complex you'll have empty, simple content and complex content. When you consider built-in, you'll have primitive and derived. Primitive types are all these and derived types are all these. User-defined, atomic and non-automatic. Okay, user-defined data types. Okay, this is some structure for XSD, how to write XSD. See if you can look at the structure itself. See, the one which is open here is closed here. That means at the end. The one which is opened at the beginning will be closed at the end. After that, which is open will be closed just before the last one. This is how the structure is. Till here we have opened, we closed, and we started closing other tags also. This determines the well-formedness of an XML document. Okay, here is one of the example which we have seen in the class also. Even in your examination, try to write this example clearly and understand what is what. Okay. This is an explanation. This XML schema documentation definition we will see in our next class. Okay, this should be explained clearly. We'll see in our next class. And then XML namespace, document object model, DOM parser, which we have seen earlier. DOM parser, which is used for parsing the XML document. Once it is parsed, it will be converting it into a DOM tree, which will consist of root nodes and its tail nodes and the data within it, and it will be sent to the application. Okay, XML DOM is language and platform independent because XML itself is platform independent. As such, obviously the parser also will be a platform independent. Here you'll be having C data and PC data, character data and parser character data. All those things, these things we'll see in our next class. Is this clear? So this is how CXH and XHTML. See, if you remember, this is what I have told. Document type HTML, XML namespace, XML namespace W3C DTD XHTML. This is how. See, XML NS determines XML namespace HTTP colon slash slash W3. W3 is nothing but World Wide Web Consortium, which supports XML, which gives its rules to XML. Okay, as such, it is converted into platform independent. Okay, these things. This is how XML is defined. Tomorrow we will see that DTD and XSD in the next class. That's on Monday. We'll see about DTD and XSD. Is this clear? This is what has happened, but the strength is very less today. Okay. Next class will be on Monday again. This week 5 classes are done. So next classes you'll have on Monday. We can finish up. We are already in our second unit. We can finish up. Okay. Thank you guys.